Did you know that you can expand and contract time? If you love your life and you're living full out, you probably want to ask yourself for more time. You want to ask yourself, how can I expand time? It is doable. If you think you can, you can. Especially if you ask the inner infinite you to help you expand time. And let me show you how. Time, as you might think, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself that you're perpetually late, your subconscious buys into the idea, because originally it's consciousness that makes the decision for subconscious, and subconscious robotically fulfills it. So originally, the conscious mind is the command and control center, but it feeds into the subconscious, as I said, which robotically does whatever you keep saying to itself. Essentially, whatever you keep repeating to yourself ultimately, inevitably, makes your thinking a future reality. For example, if you keep telling yourself and others that you're always late, you'll always be late. Surprise. Whereas, if you tell yourself repetitively with feeling and belief that I'm always on time or I'm always early, that too will become a self-fulfilling prophecy, thus self-proclaimed. You have to ask yourself to live in the assumption of the time wish fulfilled. If you have to ask yourself to be forevermore on time or early. My mother taught me, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're already 20 minutes late. So a self-fulfilling prophecy is basically an individual predicting or having the expectation that something is simply true because they believe it to be so, and the resulting behaviors will ultimately and inevitably align to fulfill their beliefs. It can be said that what you ask for and expect to get, you're going to get. That's why we wrote Ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. We want you to ask for and get ever more and ever less and have the time to fulfill and fulfill your destiny. Because you're supposed to live and be passionately on purpose and understand that you're in a state of mental and excited joy, full time, flat out. Add another time principle called Parkinson's Law. It suggests that time expands to fill the time allotted. It means if you do not have a strict time allotted to accomplishment of your goal, dream, or desire, it will not be completed. Whereas if you say, I'll finish this task within an hour with excellence, it will be done excellently within an hour. Cyril Northcote Parkinson wrote his law into The Economist in 1955. It simply means time expands or contracts based on what you determine will happen. Below, I'll share examples that I know you can relate to and have most probably experienced, felt, or heard about during your life. Each of us has to ask ourselves, how are we ever going to go on vacation when I have so much work to do? However, each of us, if you've gone on vacation, have accomplished a week's worth of work in a day. And voila, we're off on our vacation. As a 9-year-old paperboy with a big paper out and bigger dreams, I had to deliver 175 papers every morning before 7 a.m. That way I could come home, eat breakfast, and make it to school on time. I was what today we would call an unconscious competent, giving myself thought commands that worked because my family did not want to hear the alarm go off and wake them up before dawn every day. I simply asked myself to awaken at 5 a.m. and it would automatically wake up every morning without fail at 5 a.m. I told myself I'm going to feel totally refreshed and ready to go fold my papers, put the papers in my 3 bicycle baskets, one in front of the handlebar and one on each side of the bicycle adjacent to the back wheel, and quickly and efficiently and effectively deliver the papers to all my neighbors. I did this year-round through pouring, bleeding rain, frightening lightning, crashing loud, scary thunder, sleet, snow, wind, scorching heat in the summer. I faithfully delivered all those papers. I was praised by my father and my newspaper supervisor for doing a superlative job. Amazing how I asked and my subconscious owned and memorized where and who to deliver each copy of the Tribune or the Chicago Sun-Times. I also had to remember who went on vacation, for how long, when they were stopping the paper, and to restart their delivery without a second notice. I was paid the awesome sum of 1 penny a paper. That was in 1957, 58, 59, all the way through 1960 years. I was paid $1.75 a day. Big, bankable money back then for a preteen. I did it with no complaints from my customers. It taught me time control, self-management, and it gave me what my dad wanted, which was a great work ethic, which has paid off enormously through my whole life. I hope you give it to all your kids. That's why I wrote the book, The Richest Kids in America. I want every kid to learn to work for money and love doing it. Because work offers great rewards and accolades for a job well done. If you live in excellence, you get paid in excellence. I traded my time for early cash flow and have no regrets. I traded my time for bankable money to be later used to invest in my band, the Messengers, when I was 16, to earn enough money to go to college, mostly self-funded, and prepared me to exchange money until I could trade my mind power for residual, everlasting royalty income. Thanks to the early results, my writing books and creating businesses has had enormous dividends, and I want the same for you. Everyone has felt time expanded or contracted. Einstein suggested when you're holding a girl's hand that romantically, 1 hour feels like 1 second. Whereas if your hand's on a hot stove, 1 second feels like 1 hour. Right? Each of us has been in a classroom that we dreaded some school day and we wanted it over forever. And for us, we got out in elementary school at 3:15. And from 3 o'clock to 3:15 on a bad day, you just go, come on, the clock. You want to speed it up, and it just would not speed up. It dragged on and on. You wanted to fast forward so you could leave and get free. Also, if you've had that experience of having a great and inspiring coach, mentor, leader before you, your hope was that it would last forever. I used to sit in Bucky Fuller's office, and he'd come in at 4 in the afternoon. We'd stay until 2 or 3 in the morning, and he'd put his little hands on his bald head and just wax on about how the world works and cosmology and cosmogony and how to make the world work for 100% of humanity, or as mathematics, synergetic, energetic geometry. And the time just disappeared. You didn't even know until all of a sudden, holy cow, look at your watch. Holy cow, what time is it? I learned to ask my way through university. By having only great and inspiring teachers, that's what I wanted. That's what I asked myself for. And here's the strategy I use and I want you to use. When I asked, I had plenty of choice of whom I could study every subject with. I asked and I audited 4 or 5 or 6 teachers teaching the same subject. I'd choose the one that was excellent, wherein I would prosper and get straight A's. I asked myself who I resonated with. And I picked only the ones that metaphorically made my heart sing. Obviously, by doing this, I got a straight 4-point grade average. I asked for the same experience for my children. I took that experience up when my daughter Elizabeth was ready to go to kindergarten. She'd already gone to, Montessori school, so she was really good experientially. I audited 6 of her potential first teacher's classes. I sat in Mrs. Fellow's class last. I was wowed. She had it together. She was Akamai. She knew she had it together, and her life clicked, and her students clicked, and her learning clicked. She shared her love of education, being educated completely with every kid. She had a piano in the classroom. She sang, she danced, she moved, kinetically reinforced each bit of learning. She had the kids listening and whispering in the ear to the next kid, both in English and Spanish. Because really be easily multilingual if kid learns it early enough. They were taught, they shared, they loved it, and they were thrilled to be in her class, and they didn't want to graduate. When Elizabeth graduated, later her little sister Melanie got to be in the same class and had the same extraordinary, superior educational experience, and it was a wondrous time investment, which deeply branded into their respective brains and beings. Today, 25 years later, they say Mrs. Fellows was amongst their fondest educational memories. When I was a student ambassador to India while in university in 1968, I had a host stay in southern India in a city called Chikmagalur, Mysore State. My host's father was magnificently hospitable, friendly, and a phenomenally good guy. His name was M.K. Srinivas, and he owned Gianti Coffee Works. And each of us had endless questions for the other. I believe every student could benefit enormously by studying in an LDC, a less developed country. And it'll benefit the student and the country and the future, because we've got to learn to live together by living together. My host, as I said, owned Gianti Coffee Works, the biggest in India. When I visited, it was over tears when I had to leave. He said something that just burned into my brain. He said, "Mark, your being here 17 days has felt like 17 seconds. It was absorbingly euphoric. The smells, the sights, the sounds, the discussions made time disappear completely. We had a great time that I remember fondly 50 years later. My life as a professional, inspirational, motivational speaker has been beyond compare. I love every exciting minute and nanosecond, asking, selling, preparing, delivering, remembering talks that I gave and their audience's reaction. My enchanted talks have vaporized, making 3 hours disappear usually in a blink, with the audiences on their feet usually giving me a tumultuous standing ovation in response to making their time investment a prelude to an even better life and future for every attendee. One more experience that seems impossible to me now, when and as I reflect on the memory of it. I was in the tri-state area of Washington State speaking for Century 21 real estate franchise in the 80s. After my talk, I was in an exuberant, uplifted, exalted mood, and I joined my client for lunch. Our conversation was so enriching that it made time disappear, suddenly realizing that if I was to fly out, we had to race to the airport. The airplane was on schedule to fly out in an hour and a half away, and we only had a half hour to drive there. We got outside. I didn't know what he had, but he had a screaming yellow Ferrari. I asked him for our mutual safety not to speed. I'd rather be late and miss a plane than miss my life. I knew if we raced, we might make it, but I really was serious. I didn't want to speed. I want to live a long life. To my absolute surprise, he said, "Let's meditate briefly and expand time and arrive on time safely, gently, and elegantly. See you walking on your plane. And it'll be the last one out today." We did a quick meditation. Without speeding, we did the impossible. We arrived at the airport, not in an hour and a half, but in 28 minutes instead of that hour and a half. I was just dumbfounded. It was chronologically and geographically impossible. However, we did it. We controlled and expanded time and reality in our minds and in our experience and then in our mutual experience. I was amazed because 2 or more agree to a thing will make it so, the big guy said. I gave him a quick, appreciative hug. Still in disbelief, I boarded the plane with my memory intact that we'd miraculously contracted time travel without speeding and expanded our normal consciousness of time. We did this alteration of time in depth with our respective mental, meditative concentration. That's where all miracles are generated to experience, which I'll talk to you about more in future episodes. Here's what it is. It's like the great scientist, cosmologist, physicist, Dr. Stephen Hawking said right before he died. We live in a holographic reality. We control this holodeck called life with our inner thinking and our inner feeling nature. Each of us has a choice to ask to expand or contract our time by thinking about what matters most to us and being passionately on purpose about it. Sometimes you got to remember what the Bible says, be still and know that I am God. God in you can expand time and contract time. When your life becomes your magnificent obsession towards your destiny, time changes. Time is plastic. Time is moldable. Time is holographically changeable experience. Time is owned by your own consciousness. Einstein, my teacher's teacher, Bucky Fuller's teacher, said there is no time and there is no space. The only reason for time, in bold I would say, is so that everything doesn't happen at once. While most people think of time as a constant, Einstein said time is an illusion. It is relative. It can vary for different observers depending on their speed through Space. When you change your thinking, you speed through space at lightning speed. By asking yourself these new paradigm-shifting questions, like Crystal and I teach in our Ask, the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny book, you will ask for the unlimited and get it. You'll learn how to time-shift your reality experience and thus modify and mold your future to your own liking henceforth. You can impress time and make it work for you, or let things happen naturally and waste your time and do it the old, standard, tedious way. Time is fragile. Time's way too important to squander and waste. My suggestion is that you ask yourself and learn to expand or contract time. It's yours to do. If you like my sharing, hit subscribe. If you really like it, hit like. If you love it, tell at least 3 friends to watch too. Thank you for watching.